broadcast.
Oh,
all
there he is.
right, everybody. All right, internet. As promised, we brought the infamous and famous Peptide King. We got Mike on the podcast. So anybody that doesn't know who he is the black square that you're looking at right now. But we have his Instagram page pulled up here, and you're probably already following him because I've got some followers, I guess, from his followers. And check him out. He's got is it APR Health Solutions?
Yes, sir. APR.
Yep. And you can go right there in his bio. You can click on it, and everything that I have used and bought, I love, and I have been purchasing again. The C bombs, awesome. My wife enjoys them too. and the SLEW 100 milligrams I bought, but I am too scared to try right now. So I'm holding off on that. But
the 100
we'll try.
Right?
Oh yeah, the 100. Yeah. What did I say?
200, I thought.
So,
200.
oh, no,
yeah,
he said 100.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah, I've tried 8 milligrams and that kicked me in the butt, but maybe my batch was bad. Maybe they mixed in some DNP or something. But yeah.
Most likely you just needed to get your oxidative stress under control.
But we'll talk about the questions that I was sent in and some other things. So yeah, we can get started. Mike's still a black screen, but that's all right.
He's so elusive.
The camera, which I don't know.
What you don't know is Mike is actually Batman.
Well, let's not get into what I first did before peptides.
He's trying to get off the eyeshadow before.
That's fun. It's fun. Mike's backstory is really interesting.
Yeah, that's what I want to know about all that because I think it's fascinating to see where some of these people in the health, or I guess fitness industry, health industry, have came from. But all right. In the meantime, have you guys looked at the updated pictures of any of the Arnold competitors?
I've seen Nick mainly because he just bought equity in Morphogen, which really threw me for a loop.
Yeah,
I've seen him. He's looking. I mean, he always looks freaky, so I really can't comment much on that. I mean, it's always going to be the same old shit when it comes to him. I haven't been paying attention to the others though, in all honesty.
Yeah. Hey, what is that? The deal with Nick getting into that? Do you think it's a good idea?
Yes.
Or a bad idea?
So Ben, I know Ben and Deidre, they really think things through, especially when it comes to their business before they release it, like involving anyone into the business side of things. So there he is. From my understanding, it opened up a lot of avenues. They've been talking for months. And he said the minute that Nick bought equity, like just all these different opportunities just started flowing. So business-wise, it's good. Morphogen's always been like a bodybuilding-esque company with their formulas and everything. So think like Revive, Raw, all that. I mean, it makes total sense. It's going to allow them to expand their product selection because the more demand for these different types of products or any gaps that they haven't filled yet, which they've pretty much filled most of them, it's just going to keep going. And that flavor, I love that flavor.
Apple. Caramel apple?
It tastes exactly like, it's heavy on the caramel, whatever you want to call it, and just a little bit of apple on the back end. So they reverse the flavor that most people do. Really good.
So opposite of Alani Nu?
Yeah, which still pissed me off. I hated that. It's like you have a caramel apple on the front of the fucking can, guys. There's no caramel.
Well, come on, Nick. Just come to my gym by my house. The former owners are right there, man.
Oh, Trey and Max are there? Or are you talking Katie and Hayden?
Katie and Hayden.
Oh, God. Well, I've only met them once, and it wasn't like a good impression, but that was only because they were going through I don't know how much I can actually spill on this. The owners and them were kind of having like a little tiff before Katie and Hayden like left the company. They're having a tiff because there was all sorts of shit going on. Like they were focusing a lot on Prime. There were contracts that weren't exactly, not technically being violated, but not being honored either. Like they brought on a competing brand within the same company. Like that's what happened with Christian Guzman and 3D when they brought on Prime. Part of their conditions were they would not bring on another male oriented energy drink company. And then they brought in Logan Paul. So Christian was pissed. There was a lawsuit there. Katie and Hayden were not happy with the direction because it seems like everything got put on the back burner because of Prime. It was a shit show. So Congo ended up taking a large hit when it comes to lawsuits, which I think ultimately led to them selling the Celsius when they got the deal. But there's no telling. That's just kind of hearsay at this point.
I don't know anything about that. That is all your stuff.
Yeah, the owners are great. Don't get me wrong. I just think they're young and they just weren't exactly thinking it through. And at the same time, they had people that were doing these deals. So there's no telling if those people are the main reason this happened. Like not doing their due diligence. There's no telling there.
Yeah. I would say like that's probably one of the hardest things when you do scale up a business. I mean, you're either selling it off, make it a profit, and that's what a lot of people try to do, or you have a private equity firm come in and just give you money and not make you make decisions. So
yeah, and then you lose all control once the PE firms come in. I have quite a bit of experience with PE firms. So my wife actually used to be the global controller at a PE firm. And then I used to work for Kraft Heinz. And so, with 3G Capital being there, they like to input their people. And like you said, you don't have a whole lot of decision making at that point in time. You don't get to control the direction very much. And there's always ways for them to take more and more of your profits too.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you do before you got into all this?
Yeah, so way before manufacturing. So I have 21 years of manufacturing experience, and that includes everything from automotive to chemicals to pharmaceuticals, and then CPG space, so consumer product goods, mostly food, beverage, that area. Then prior to that, I was in intelligence and a military contractor. So that's where I originally started out after school, and then went into manufacturing, did 21 years in manufacturing, and got into peptides really because of my Crohn's disease. My stomach was flaring up, things like that. I was looking around one day at work and I had Pepto-Bismol bottles at my office desk, in my car, another 20 at home, in my gym bag. I was like, I think something's wrong with my stomach at this point. And so started getting into peptides, started using BPC-157 to get my Crohn's under control. And, I was originally buying it from actually Chase Irons. But then I figured, hey, what the heck? I got 21 years of experience in this area. I can do better. I can do this. Why don't I have a go at it? And then that's when I started APR and started manufacturing for myself. And it grew from there.
That's what's up. So when did the Crohn's start? Like when you're in the military?
Shortly after. So generally for men, it comes on when you're 25 years old, and mine came right in when I was 25. I got recruited into intelligence right out of high school. So I was 18 when I started doing that. And then I was military contractor after that. And then by 25, I had left and started working for Robert Bosch in manufacturing. And so my Crohn's came on at 25. I'm now in my mid 40s. So been dealing with this for 20 years at this point.
Dang. So what did you try before BPC and obviously like the Pepto-Bismol? Like what are the steps you had to go through?
Let me tell you, Pepto-Bismol was utterly useless. So back, 20 years ago, they didn't know a whole lot about Crohn's disease. And so there was no really definitive diagnosis. It was process of elimination to be able to get there. And so I tried a lot of crazy things based on what the doctors were telling me to do. So everything from different medications. So I've been on the prescription probiotic, Remicade, Humira. We even tried low dose chemo for a while to knock down my immune system on that.
Like the methotrexone?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
So that was for like a year. We tried various diets. At one point in time, if you can believe this, they had me on an all fast food diet. So I was literally, I could only eat McDonald's, Taco Bell, Burger King for every meal of the day.
What the hell is this for me?
Wait.
I guess,
was that the specialist?
If my stomach was going to kill me, my cholesterol probably would with that diet.
Did the specialist recommend that, or like a
Yeah,
GP?
no, a GI doctor recommended that to me. Yeah. The theory was, since it's low in fiber and with the grease and all, it moves through your system quickly, so it has less time to cause inflammation. We obviously now know, like, there's plenty of chemicals in that grease and everything is going to cause more inflammation. I stuck with that diet for a month. It was cool for like the first 2 days, and then after that, I was like, I don't want to see another burger or a freaking like burrito. No, nothing. It was terrible. So the only diet that actually did anything for me was the FODMAP diet. That one was actually pretty good. So I recommend that to people as they're first getting into this area. Finally, I was in and out of hospitals. My record is 31 days in the hospital. I was actually prepping for a bodybuilding show. So I did open bodybuilding back then. And I went into the hospital, let's say pretty lean, 240-ish. And during those 31 days, I wasn't allowed to have any food during it because they were doing different tests every single day. I had 2 surgeries during that time. They took out my gallbladder, and then it took out some of my intestines. So by the time I got out of the hospital, I was a fat 185. Maybe I was 190 if I was lucky. I could safely say all my sponsors dropped me instantaneously. At that point, they had asked for pictures, when I got out. I was like, uh-oh, this isn't going to be good. So, everyone dropped me. I started from scratch again, went back to my powerlifting team, and I just helped loaded weights for like the first month when I got out of the hospital. That's about all I could do, was put like a 10-pound plate on the barbell for my teammates and things like that. But yeah, it's been a up and down road, let's say. A lot of, hey, I did really well in strongman. Had to come off of all the Crohn's medicines when we were trying to have my daughter. That put me in the hospital every other month, or every month, probably 1 week out of the month. And thankfully we had her. Then I went back on all the medicines. But that kind of killed the strongman career for a period of time, for about a year and a half or so. And then really though, for the last 6 years, knock on wood, I've just been on peptides. And I'm off all Crohn's medicines, so no Remicade, no Humira, nothing like that. I haven't had any major flare-ups during that time either, so it's been 6 years without being in the hospital, which I am very happy about. And things have been going, like, I've been able to do bodybuilding preps and things like that without any pain or discomfort, which I could never do before.
Okay, that's a crazy story. There's a lot to unpack in there.
Yeah, a lot.
First of all, how tall are you?
6'2".
Okay. When you're a bodybuilding, did you have a coach?
Yeah, so I've been blessed to have some amazing coaches during my time. So I've worked with Justin Harris and Shelby Starns back when Shelby was with Tropin Nutrition, it was just coaching back then. There was no supplements back when I first started working with them. So Shelby Starns helped out on that. I worked with John Meadows for a period of time as well. I think about 3 years. I still have all of his old emails back where it said John Meadows at chasebank.com.
Yeah.
So he was a bank manager sending me all my workout programs and diets and things like that. And then most recently, my last two coaches were Skip Hill. So Skip helped me with strongman. Actually, I kind of forced his hand into helping me with strongman for a period of time because I really wanted to have one last big deadlift in my career, which we succeeded with a 905 deadlift, in strongman deadlift, not powerlifting.
Yeah.
18-inch deadlift. I got to use straps, so I don't want any power lifters coming after me. And then Phil Viz was my last coach. Before my last competition, I actually coached myself.
Gotcha. And I've heard what you did prior to that, stepping on stage with the growth hormone. I'll ask that question later.
Yep, the trick I stole from John Meadows.
Yeah, when you worked with John Meadows, did he already have his like ostomy bag or anything? Because didn't he have part of his colon taken out?
Back when the vein ruptured in his large intestine and he almost bled out, but thankfully he was already in the hospital when that happened. So the vein ruptured and the poor guy was pouring blood out of his ass in the hospital. But you know, that had been resolved. So it was during that time that I worked with him shortly after that.
So you already had the diagnosis of Crohn's at the same time or no?
I'm trying to remember. I don't think I had a definitive diagnosis. I was definitely going through it at that time, but I don't think we had finally narrowed it down between UC, IBS, or Crohn's.
Okay. So was he kind of like really gearing your nutrition to help you with that because he's had similar issues?
Yeah, it worked out great during that 3-year period because he knew what I was going through and he was able to help guide it a little bit. Or if I said I was having a flare up, he understood what I was talking about. So it was really nice having a coach understanding what I was going through because he went through something similar.
Yeah. Yeah. So like whenever you went into the hospital and you came out and you lost your sponsors, who were you with before, or do you not want to talk about that?
No, it's fine. I mean, I was doing, I worked with Biotest / T Nation.
Okay.
If you're familiar with them, that was 20 years ago, almost at this point, back in the message board days. Then P28 Foods, which was really good high protein bread, bagels. Fortunately, the owner kind of went off the rails. I don't know if you all ever saw that, what happened to him.
All the drug charges.
Well, what was it? The kidnapping charges and all that fun stuff.
He did a lot.
Yeah, he was a nice guy. I don't know what the hell happened on that one, but so P28 Foods was one. I was also writing for various publications at that time. I used to write healthy recipes. I had a cookbook, and I wrote for like Natural Muscle magazine, and a couple other fitness and health magazines as well, doing the diet and cooking recipes section, if you will. I used to go by the name Muscle Chef back in the day, before bodybuilding.com sued me into oblivion.
Back when they had like the whole body space thing and all that stuff.
They apparently had something called the Ripped Chef, which they determined was close enough to Muscle Chef. And so they would constantly sue me. Bodybuilding didn't pay anything. At that time, I think I was a manager, maybe in finance at a manufacturing company. And I didn't have the funds, even though they lost every lawsuit, it still cost me $5,000 to hire the lawyer to just fight it. And so after multiple attempts of, going for that and everything, I just gave up, and I was like, fine, screw it. I'm no longer the Muscle Chef. I was like, I can't keep up with, $5,000 a pop versus, bodybuilding.com, who that was chump change for.
Yeah. Wasn't there like a dude, the Protein Chef or something?
There was
Remember?
a protein chef. There's also an IFBB pro who made meal prep service called Muscle Chef. I think he was out of New York or New Jersey. I actually had the name before him, and I had it copyrighted, but I never trademarked. I never actually went after him for that or anything like that. I mean, he did meal prep. That's fine. We just kind of coexisted on that side of things. But yeah, there was definitely already a muscle chef who was an IFBB pro bodybuilder who did meal prep services. I believe he's still in existence right now. Still doing meal prep too.
Yeah, I mean, talking about all this stuff, I'm like, it's nostalgic, and I'm like thinking back about like all the because I'm pretty sure if you've ever been at a P28 booth at an expo, I probably met you one day randomly. But because I've been in this industry for a while, went with sports orthopedics, my route over at UF, and but one of my first coaches was Matt Porter, and so there's a lot of like,
it's my muscle chef.
My muscle chef.
There we go. Okay, changed this slightly.
But it's funny, man. It used to be so wild at the expos back in the day, and supplement companies, and just the people in general, the forums. Man, just the things that you would see, and like I forgot what podcast I was listening to, but they brought this up, and yeah, like expos used to be freaking like Vegas strip joints. Like it was crazy,
The forum days were definitely you had to have thicker skin than a lot of people have today. That's for sure. Everyone was getting flamed on there. If you were new and you asked some dumb question, oh, Lord help you, you're getting flamed by all the old vets on the board and everything like that.
Like, what is insulin?
Huh?
Like, what is insulin?
Yeah. That would have solicited a different response from me, 15 years ago than today. I've learned to
got nuked.
Yeah, I've learned to be much calmer these days and more friendly, I'll say, which is a good thing, though. I think the industry has actually gone down a better path, and we see people that are nicer succeeding. I mean, how many of those big name bodybuilders back in our day were utter assholes to deal with in person? They were cocky, and they seem to have forgotten that their fans are what paid their paychecks. These days, you don't see that really anymore. It seems like everyone's much more appreciative of the fans, the followers, and things like that. So at least I think the industry's improved in that area.
Yeah, and I'm very slow to judge someone nowadays too. Like I really have to get to know them, and the environment that someone's in definitely can dictate them being pissed off or whatever.
Sure.
But I always try to give someone like a second chance, and because I used to be, because working with Matt Porter, like I don't know if his diet was meant for insulin, and it was like zero fat, carbs. And tons of Anavar, like 200 mgs of Anavar, and fasted insulin for cardio, like fasted cardio, and use insulin. Crazy stuff like that. And I used to, I was on the board, and I was one of those people that asked about that, and I got ripped a new one. And I was like, okay, I'll just sit back and watch now, because they're like, you're gonna die. I'm like, okay.
Well, there's
sounds like a pretty similar conversation we had today.
I think there's been a few kidneys shot with some of those protocols, I'll say.
Oh, yeah. Dude, but that's part of the game that I play, is just let me guinea pig myself and get some empirical evidence and anecdotal evidence and see what happens.
Well, hey, that's the name of the game for me too, right? Like everything on the APR site, there's 124 products right now. I have personally tried every single one of them. It might feel like a human pincushion at times, but I want to be able to tell people my experience with it, because the research, that's great and all. In the peptide space, though, it's mostly animal studies that are being done there. So how does that actually translate to humans? You're not really able to answer those questions unless you've done it yourself. And there's obviously a whole lot of peptide company owners that don't even do peptides themselves. They're just in it for money. There's others that use it for washing money, let's say. And so I want to be the one that can actually say, hey, this was my experience with it. These are the benefits I got. These were the side effects I got, if any. You know, these are the watch outs, kind of thing like that, because personal experience certainly matters in an area where there's not a ton of definitive research.
Yeah. I remember my first peptide I think I used back in the day, well, besides growth, is GHRP6.
Okay.
That was like a long time ago. And I just remember taking the injection, and then like 30 minutes later, like my bowels just evacuated. And I was like, holy crap, this is making me hungry.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't even know what I injected, really. I have no clue. But that's what the label said.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like there was something else in there.
Yeah.
Good thing we've come, I think, a long way since that. I mean, shoot, the first time I did gear, you know, it was I was just taking testosterone back then. But I remember the vial said "Made in Afghanistan," and which I couldn't figure out how they were making it because I had just been over there, you know, blowing shit up. So, oops, I said I wasn't going to curse, dang it. But I don't know how they were making the test or where they were making it and which tunnel. But sure enough, you know, it said that. And then if you lined up all the ampules, there's probably 3 milliliters in one, 2 milliliters in the other, maybe 3.5 in the next one. It was like, wow, there's no quality control here. But heck, when you're 25, 26, you'll roll the dice.
So you were so like my first ones were ampules, not the vials. Have you the first time I opened one, I like crushed it and I got like stuck in my hand. And I'm like, I don't know if I can do this. And then whenever I loaded it, the next one I opened up, I used a 22 gauge and I didn't switch the top, the lure lock. I was like,
you harpoon.
yeah. So having worked in the medical field during that time, I was like, these are all I can get my hands on. I was just taking them from our inventory. So I was like,
Yeah.
well, I'll just inject this. And so like I did it right in my quad, and I was like, I couldn't bend down to do anything for like the next couple weeks.
Ouch.
And dude, and I'm pretty sure it was either Enanthe or Sustanon. I can't remember which one someone got me. But yeah, that sucked. I think it was Sus. It had some pip to it, but yeah.
Yeah, those ampules back in the day were always fun. They were like trying to like use a pen cap or something like that to snap it, because you can just go on Amazon and get a cutter for $2 and have it delivered within an hour to your house, like you can now. So,
but they're like generics, you know, like, and the medical ones, they have this, like, it's so easy to pop open. So like when you're working in the ICU, you just easily pop them open. But I remember these being thick, and I'm like, how the freak did I open this one? But yeah. So we got some questions here, and let's see. First one, which peptides best support an anabolic steroid cycle? Are there any that should be avoided on cycle? Very vague.
I can't think of any that you want to avoid. I would think, if anything, a lot of them are complementary. I mean, if you're like in a growth phase, you probably don't want to take the more, I don't want to say hardcore, but the ones that are going to support a faster metabolism or something that's going to be involved in the fat loss phase. If you're trying to grow, like, you wouldn't take 8 milligrams of retatrutide if you're trying to grow. I mean, because there's no way you'd be able to get the food down. Like, lower dose, there's argument for that. But outside of that, I mean, I don't know, Mike, what do you think? I can't think of anything else you would want to take.
Yeah, to your point, it's goal dependent, right? If you're bulking versus cutting on that, there'd be ones that you'd want to avoid or utilize in those situations. But in general, let's say ones that are always good to use or utilize, BPC-157, TB500, you know, those, not only are they going to keep your joints, you know, in a good spot, help with recovery. You know, I'm a pretty big fan of the low dose when you're in prep to make sure you avoid those muscle tears and muscle strains, the tendon tweaks, all that stuff. But it's also good for your cardiovascular system as well. So it's going to help out with your heart and things like that you're always going to want to be mindful of when you're using gear. So, and not a lot of people recognize that BP-157 is actually, BPC-157 is good for your cardiovascular system as well. So there's that, MOTS can obviously help with your lipid profile too. So that's generally utilized more in a cutting phase, but it is also something you could utilize in a bulking phase to make sure your lipids stay where you'd want them. Cardiogen, that's more so on the bioregulator side. That's really like the only bioregulator with that, maybe the exception of cortigen that I would recommend. And that one, great, obviously, for your heart. So again, these are all more preventative things to make sure your blood work is coming back where you want it to be. So, avoiding wise, yeah, it's, the higher dose ones that aren't meant for whatever phase you're in. So to Nick's point there, if you're in a bulking phase, you don't want to be taking, any of the GLPs at high doses to kill your appetite, things like that. And then, outside of that, avoid the painkiller ones. No one should be using morphine. Like, any company that even offers that is irresponsible, in my opinion.
Well, they're opening up their possibilities of getting arrested. So
so, but there's plenty of them that do. But and I'm sure there's some bodybuilders out there that are looking for something to take the pain away from being sore. But suck it up and deal with the soreness. Like, if you can't deal with that, you're in the wrong sport.
Yeah, and there's also a difference between soreness and pain. Soreness, that is nothing. That now, if you're in like severe pain, then you need to reevaluate something because you're doing something wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I think the medical field has come a long way. If you go to specific people and you shop around, I know whenever I left with sports orthopedics, we were recommending BPC and TB to pretty much everyone with injury recovery, especially working with some of the professional athletes. And dude, it's freaking miracles. But like, yeah, there's like a difference between like your doses being used as well for like if you are going through a specific injury and trying to heal and recover versus if you're just trying to reap the benefits of the cardiovascular and the systemic reducing inflammation.
For sure.
What do you think that so like these random people that are having I assume clotting issues, do you think that like people that are using Clomid still and then they use something like very high dose BPC for a long period of time and it creates like angiogenesis, do you think that those two interfere? Because
we already know that Clomid in general, if you're on that for long term at decent dosages, are going to cause those problems anyway. Yeah. So, that was something that we were always mindful of with John Meadows, right? With a clotting issue, a genetic one anyway. And then those studies coming out that were showing that long-term SERM use was causing some clotting issues in folks, in a lot of folks, I should say, for the long-term use aspect of it. And yeah, exactly. You add in something else that could cause potential clotting issues, especially at high doses for long durations, then it's a recipe for disaster at that point.
Yeah, like I'm so like again, like I'm so small on the internet right now, but I preach small doses, like small. And I just think that whenever people start using these, I think they either they just say go big or go home, or B, they don't know how to reconstitute it, or C, their coaches or their online, the people who have these peptide presence online who read from AI things on their computer. I think they get some bad information, and that plus the underground steroid sources, I don't know if people are actually getting the drugs that they're getting. Like, I think, it's easier to give someone a different drug, right? So we don't really know the interactions, kind of like how you're saying a lot of these studies are done on animals and stuff. But like even the empirical evidence we have with bodybuilders, because we use so much gray market stuff, I'm like, when people ask me these questions, I just tell them I don't know. But some of these doses that I've seen on like retatrutide, and then they're like maxing out at 12 milligrams, and then they're like, let me throw in CAG, and then let me switch it up to terzepatide, and then let me throw a little bit of semaglutide. I don't know. I don't
That's
know.
just too
Like,
much.
yeah. So it's like I've had someone where they just like max themselves out, and they wanted to hire me, and I told them I'm not taking you on as a client because I don't know how to like reverse this stuff besides make you go cold turkey, and I don't know what that's going to do to your pancreas, to your hunger. Like I have no idea. So I'm like, I don't want to be a part of that. But yeah, it's dude, the information out there. I just wish more people were like you, as I follow you and I see the information. It's very, like, in my opinion, it's spot on as far as like what you should do.
Well, thank you. I
Yeah.
appreciate that. It's I put a lot of research into, before posting anything like that. I will say I love AI to be able to pull relevant studies so that way it's easier to read through all of them. I don't go by AI itself, but it's great to be able to plug in there and be like, hey, pull me all research studies on this topic. And you can narrow it down to 20, research studies that then individually read versus, shifting through the hundreds of thousands of research studies that are in some of the publication areas. But to your point there, like when people are mixing GLPs, look, if you have to use retatrutide, Tirzep together, or if you're even using, honestly, in my opinion, if you're throwing in Cagri on top of any of these things, there's a specific use case for that. I've seen some people completely change their lives, go from 400 pounds down to 180 pounds over several years, but utilizing these tools. That's what it's meant for. If you're a bodybuilder and you have to use something like RETA and Cagri to control your hunger, you're in the wrong sport. Like, people were doing this well before any of those came out. You just sat there and you got hungry. Like, learn to push through some things. I don't know if that's my military mindset coming through or whatever, or the fact that I played sports at a college level, but you should be able to push through a little discomfort. That's what always gets my goat, though, when you see these people that are combining like 2 GLPs plus Cagri because they don't want to feel hungry. It's like, no, you're supposed to be hungry right now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I find the benefits of like RETA, just I use it at 1 milligram every 7 days, and it's really to control my addictive behaviors, and it gets rid of my OCD, and and I used to have a bad eating disorder coming out of bodybuilding. Like dude destroyed me, plus working overnights in the hospitals, like 4 days in a row.
Shift work
And
is not.
dude, it has night and day. Just I'm so much more productive, and I don't have any, again, like addictive personality traits anymore, which is crazy. And that's the only reason why I continue to take it.
Yeah, I have been taking it year round because it helps regulate my contractions of my GI tract and also reduce the inflammation in there as well. So, BPC-157 did great, the oral version of it, for my GI tract and all, but I'd still get flare-ups occasionally. Nothing major necessarily. If I felt one coming on, I'd add oral KPV to the mix, and that generally knocked it out. But nonetheless, I'd be in some discomfort for a few days. Since adding RETA in there, it's been 2 years now. I haven't even had an inkling of a issue on that side, and I just ramp up or down my dose based on, I don't use much more than you do when I'm in a bulking or off season or health phase or anything like that. Just enough to reduce the inflammation, keep my intestines contracting at a normal basis. I also was using nicotine for that before too. Nicotine's great at making sure the contractions happen on a regular basis. You don't need much. It's, I was using 1 Zyn, 3 milligram a day, and that was helping out on that side of things. But utilizing RETA there, or then I ramp up the dose, as I go towards contest prep, but I never go above 6 on that one. So yeah, anyone that's running 12 or the max doses, you don't need to be doing that. That is meant for people who need to lose weight to save their lives, is what that's meant for.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What were you about to say, Nick?
Agreed. Let me get my thoughts here. So yeah, it's like I agree with Mike on if you're in bodybuilding and you can't deal with hunger, like if you can't do it the old fashioned, like Vigorous Steve calls it the blue collar way. If you can't do it the old fashioned way, then you have no place in it, because part of it is enduring that. Yes, we have the tools, but if you can only do bodybuilding because of these drugs, then you were never cut out to do it to begin with. The point is to use them now that you already have those habits in place. Like when I first got like really lean, I did that. I mean, I didn't even know these things existed. I dealt with the hunger. I did a shit ton of cardio, a lot of Stairmaster, which is probably why my knees suck, and just ate within, talk about down to the macro. Like if I was 1 gram over on something, I would take it out. Like I would make sure I subtracted that 1 gram. Like you were talking about OCD. We've had this discussion. I'm diagnosed OCD. In context of bodybuilding or keeping to those numbers, it's very useful. In everyday life, it kind of sucks. So it is retatrutide, kind of the same thing for me, but it's like they're tools, they're not crutches. If you can't do it without the crutch, then you had no leg to stand on to begin with. So tough shit.
Yeah, and I don't bodybuild anymore. I don't call myself a bodybuilder. I'm just straight performance, man. I train 2 times per day, and sometimes 3 times per day. But it's all about the 100 meters, the ergo bikes, and all that stuff while resistance training. But I'm like, how much performance effort can I put in one day, every single day for months, and not have to take a break, and my body stay great? And these peptides are like blowing my mind, along with nutrition and sleep and stuff. So I'm pushing it to the max, and my viewers and clients know, but I'm so surprised by when you already have the foundation in place, and then you start adding some of these in at a very small dose. It's like, dude, it's jet fuel. Freaking love it.
Yeah, I wish these things were around when I was still doing strongman. Probably could have extended my career on that side of things. Nick, you were talking about knees. I was literally told I have the knees of an 80-year-old because I have arthritis now. Slapping a 800-pound yoke on your back and running around is a little bit tough on the knees. And my best events were deadlift, yoke, farmer's carry, and the power steps where you have to go up the steps with the heavy object. So my knees took a thorough beating in my career.
How heavy were you for strongman? And then what was your heaviest in bodybuilding off season and then on stage?
So I competed, there's only 2 weight classes at the highest level in strongman. And it's 230 and below and 231 to unlimited. So it really sucks if you weighed in at 231 and you're against the 400-pound guys. So walking around, I was probably like 250 most times, and then cut down to 230 because you have 24-hour weigh-ins. So you have enough time to rehydrate and things like that. I'll tell you, the first time I went to a professional show competition, everyone weighed in and immediately got IVs from nurses that were with them. And I was looking around, I was like, were we supposed to bring our own nurse? Because I don't have one. Clearly my cut wasn't.
Start doing the heroin technique.
Yeah, right. Just start strapping it up myself.
Give me your needle.
For me? Clearly I didn't cut enough weight on that one. But so that one I was like 250-ish walking around. But the funny thing is, for bodybuilding, the heaviest I've been is about 250, but at a drastically different body composition, I'll say.
Yeah. That was your on stage 250?
No. That was
Okay.
that was off season, but I didn't have to lose that much. I would probably got on stage at 230, 235, somewhere around there.
At 6'2". Yeah.
Yeah, 6'2", 6'1". So the funny thing is, when you start dieting quite a bit and you get super lean, maybe you remember this, you start losing height. And then as you then fill back up, you gain your height back as all that cartilage and everything comes back. So at my last competition, I was probably, outside of when I was doing the open, I was the leanest that I was out in Vegas when Nick was out there with me at that show. And I barely weighed in at 6 foot during the weigh-in and heighting process. And I was looking, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? I've never been below 6 feet since I was like middle school. And then one of the judges there told me, they're like, nah, it's just because you lost all your cartilage. You're older now too, so it impacts you even more. And so you'll get back up to 6'2" once you fill back up. And they're right. I'm about that size now again.
That's the MSS, the Mike Summerfield syndrome.
Okay.
Yeah. Start bringing your traction table with you.
Yeah, exactly. Or like one, I wish I had enough hair, so I could grow it out like the one classic guy. So, you get that extra inch there.
Just glue one of those afros on. You'd be like, yeah,
exactly.
My name's Mikkel. Next question.
The fact that I have a hair is I think a direct representative of APR's hair product, given that all the men in my family were bald by the time they were 30.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and get into that one. I'll go with the question that Nick asked. Where do you see the future of peptides going? Used in place of or alongside anabolic steroids. Do you and within that question, do you also see it really hitting that area of reducing the amount of hair transplants and rather just using peptides for regrowth and reactivation of follicles?
So I'll take the hair question first, because that's a little bit easier, I think, and probably shorter. I don't think it's going to, especially if you're talking about bodybuilders, it's not going to replace the need for the hair transplants. They're running too hard of cycles for too long for, RU to fully offset, that. It doesn't matter what we put in these concoctions, PTD, which is super expensive, but better on the hair follicle side. It's not going to offset those really strong cycles. Now, it's going to absolutely help once you get the hair transplant for your recovery with it, and you might not have that goofy look, for a year like most do right now. We might be able to get that down to a couple months, I think, with the proper usage there. But yeah, I think hair transplants, Turkey is not going to run out of business anytime soon, I'll say.
Yeah.
As far as, running alongside or the future of peptides, I think that's a pretty interesting question, because personally, I see that my industry does not directly compete against the TRT clinics. We are two sides of the same coin to help people. With the TRT clinic, they're very limited in what their peptide catalog can look like, versus for the research only side, it's a much more extensive catalog that we can offer. And between those two routes, but research only can't prescribe actual medications. So between the TRT clinic providing the actual medications like testosterone, and the research only peptide clinics supplying researchers for research purposes only, or extensive catalog to be able to support goals, people will get healthier quicker and stay healthier longer, on that side of things. So, you know, I've talked to many TRT clinic owners. We all agree we're not in competition. We also service two slightly different markets. For research only, it really is for people who research. In order to use these peptides, you have to put in the work and do your own research. You can't just rely on your favorite social media influencer telling you what to do. That's not going to help you. You actually need to look into and read some papers on this and figure out what you want to do. Now, if you want a quicker approach and someone to spoon feed you, which is totally fine, you can go the TRT clinic route. And that way a doctor can tell you exactly what to do with the medications. Because I can't legally tell anyone what to do when they order the peptides, because I'm the manufacturer and I need to assume that everyone is researchers. So I can't provide instructions in an order, for example. Whereas a doctor can give you very specific instructions on a medication and how to use it. So it's two different markets that we have. And then for the people that are kind of in the middle that are willing to do some research, but also want the prescribed medications, we work together in that area. Now, where the peptide industry is going to go long term, you know, I think it's going to be a 2-year battle, roughly, and the outcome is still undecided at this point in time, whether it's going to have to go fully underground or remain in this gray market area. It's big business, but, you know, the pharmaceutical companies are not really going after us necessarily, but are going after different ways that make it painful to operate, like credit card processors and things like that. So that's where they're influencing it, is to make it as difficult as possible for people to access these things. So couldn't tell you who's going to win that one long term.
Yeah.
So so I asked the question, I wanted to hear Mike and then I guess my viewpoint on it. So it's not, I mean, it's pretty similar to Mike's, but in regards to the research purposes, yes, those, I mean, any industry like that where mass amounts of people are flooding to it, a lot to do with social media and influencers pushing the masses, the government's going to look at that and they're going to be like, okay, there's a lot of people going towards this. What's going on? Do these people have any business using these things? We need to look into this. So looking at it from just a purely like non-conspiratorial route, but more of a safety route, like they're always going to be conservative when it comes to new things. That's why you don't see pharmaceutical drugs, like hundreds of them pop out at once. It's like every few months, maybe every few years, a new one hits the market, just because essentially of the way they go through, I don't know, doing the safety studies and all that, which apparently they're going to be passing some kind of bill that you don't have to go through this big like obstacle course with the government to get a new drug approved. It's going to be a lot shorter. That's kind of what they're shooting for. But
yeah, they're taking it from 3 to 1 now.
Yes. Which
really? That just passed or
shrink the
it's trying to be
pipeline.
passed?
Well, I think they are passing it, if I remember correctly.
We'll see how it gets passed, given government can't even pass a spending bill right now to keep T3 open. So, you know, it's, nothing's getting passed in our government lately, unfortunately.
Yeah, but a big factor in the peptide space as well is not necessarily if it gets pushed underground, but I'm looking more towards, you know, pharmaceutical companies, they're already dealing in the peptide stuff. They're going to pretty much, I'm seeing a lot of the pharmaceutical drugs that are going to come out in the future, they're probably going to be peptide derived, or they're going to be something like that, because they understand they have a lot more, I don't want to call it like a playground to mess around with, but you can go with peptides. There's a million different ways you can use these things, like not just for multiple diagnoses or things like that, or treating conditions, but they're coming out with new ones all the time. I work, you know, in a spine center, and there's already, I'll have to find the name of it, but there's already one that they're prescribing that's new to help with the regrowth of, I guess it's like the cartilage in a bone, but they're already using this for people that are going through like deterioration of their bones, like elderly people. They're already prescribing a peptide right now to help regrow it. So I'm seeing this going to keep going. And if you look at like psychiatric conditions and all that, almost guarantee you there's going to be something down the pipeline where they're going to start using those to treat those versus just the run of the mill first go SSRIs, second go adjunct therapies, which they mitigate symptoms, but they don't do anything. Like having OCD, that was their first line of treatment, high dose SSRI to help reduce the symptoms, but doesn't do jack shit for the actual condition itself. It just reduces the symptoms. Like
It just makes you depressed.
yeah, I wouldn't even say depressed. It just makes
It's like you don't care about anything else. You're just like,
yeah, no,
Takes
and
feelings away.
it's great
you
for
numb.
anxiety because you don't feel anything.
yeah,
So can't feel anxious if you don't feel. So
Yeah.
you feel apathetic essentially. But
Mhm.
I see these being used a lot now. As for the pharmaceutical companies play ball with the peptide industry, probably not. I don't see that happening.
It'd just be a war of attrition as to who tires
Yeah.
out first, honestly.
Yeah,
And who
because
wants to
they
stop
want
spending the
they want to
time
lay
and
claim to that ground.
Yeah. Yeah. Both of your points definitely makes me think. First of all, I don't think the healthcare industry has enough knowledge and the doctors to back up any peptide prescriptions because they don't have the ability to even finish charting on time. So there's no way they're going to research and all this stuff. And you're not going to, if I'm a doctor, well, when the pharmaceutical reps came in, attendees and residents really wouldn't even listen. It was like the charge nurse would listen to them, and then the information was given to an admin. So, and then you have to meet a quota to hit that prescription. But
so
I wonder about health insurance. I wonder how they're gonna like if this all happens, right? But like, I wonder how they would play a role in it, and would people be more enticed to buy them if their HSA covers them?
I can
You know,
already tag on to that. But go ahead.
but I mean, I personally hate the fact that cryptocurrency and everything has been the way it is so volatile. Because back in the day, I used it to buy my stuff underground, and my dollar was the same dollar that I bought. But now my dollar, it's like 10 cents right now. So I'm like, you're freaking messing up my currency, dude. But yeah, I see a very big problem with education around peptides when it comes to doctors prescribing.
Yeah. So let's just tag on to GLP-1s because those are still the hot commodity, the thing. So the company I work for, who not going to name the name, they the insurance was covering people's GLP-1s. For instance, like an employee, for instance, you would only pay like $100 for that prescription. Well, insurance companies changed it around and everyone got a letter. Even people that aren't prescribed these, like all of the employees for the entire company got this letter saying now instead of $100, now your prescription is going to be $500 a month.
Whew.
Imagine how many people, especially making the amount they're making in healthcare, how many people are actually getting those filled.
Yeah.
So all they did is essentially just drive people into the underground market, because if you make it so it's unattainable to people, they're going to go the other route. Like, you're just pushing people down a hole where, yes, there are a lot of reputable companies, APR, for instance, all of that, but people are going to get funneled in a hole where they're going to go to the black market, the underground market. And in that case, you're more liable to come into like running into adverse events because you don't know which ones are using quality control. You don't know if their dose that says 10 milligrams per ml is actually 30 milligrams per ml or some shit like that with some of these peptides. I mean, they're just kind of pushing themselves into a hole by doing that. At the end of the day, insurance doesn't care. Healthcare itself, if insurance wasn't involved, I know a lot of doctors, providers, and everything like that, anyone that thinks they're getting handouts from insurance companies,
Yeah.
maybe there's one in every 200. They fucking hate insurance. They want nothing to do with insurance companies. They hate these people. They do not want to work with insurance. So,
yeah, that was like a big deterring factor with me in the healthcare field. But I'll give everybody a little like a hint of what to do though. If you do get a bill like that or an information from your health insurance, go back to your doctor. If your doctor's smart enough and you keep this doctor, he will change the ICD-10 code so that they can make sure to have it covered better. But if your doctor doesn't know how to do that, go get another doctor.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we talked about peptides and healthcare and things like that. Not to, I don't know, give my competitors too much of insight or anything like that, but I think the next area that will be, of interest to people and, coming out for healthcare and things like that. Florida just passed a law that stem cell research is now allowed. And we can start doing stem cell injections for different therapies and things like that. Now, right now, it's mostly limited to like joints and cosmetic procedures, but that's going to expand quite a bit now that it's legal, at least in Florida. And we see
I can get myself a big old 10-incher.
Right? I'm sure there's just going to be a stem cell for that. 100% sure.
You need to make sure you're pushing all the blood flow down there.
Yeah, right. There's already growth factors and things like that, that can help out on that side, especially, Russian markets have some areas there too that are much better than Vigorous Steve's bathmate protocol that was going on.
I gotta touch on that. The first time I ever heard him mention that, I was like, "What the fuck is this?" So I went to the link.
Google.
Dude. I'm like, dude. I'm over here thinking this is some kind of like, I don't fucking know. What's the accessory for like peptides or drugs? I'm not thinking it's a penis pocket.
I thought it was like I thought it was like a caddy or something that you put in your shower. But dude,
that's what it sounds like. That would make sense.
But like if I ever wanted to Google stuff like that, again, the whole like whatever anal beads and stuff, I'm asking my wife, hey, have you ever like looked up this? Can you look up this on your phone? Like I don't want it on mine.
Exactly. I don't want those ads on mine. Yeah. I have worked with some folks in the adult industry before, whether that's, to help them perform at their jobs better, or for their stamina at work, and things like that. So I've seen probably more than a lot of peptide company owners in that regard as to what's available on the market and things like that. And there's definitely some out there that are designed for that. But stem cells,
that I did not know. That I didn't know that. I'm so oblivious to that industry. So
it's, honestly, the peptide space in that industry is super interesting because there are really some unique solutions out there for various tests, whether that's, make sure they're in the right headspace or they're able to do it. And there's very unique peptides to help out in specific areas too. I mean, some things are as simple as like PT-141, and utilizing that, or oxytocin, things like that are more mainstream. And then there are, the ones that you have to fill a syringe and, put it into the base of what you're working with. And that does not sound like fun, but it works incredibly well. And so these folks are willing to do that because that's their job. But anyway, the peptide space in there is super interesting. So I definitely have helped out a number of folks in that area. But then we have, stem cells that are coming out now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to be the next market. I think that's going to be a pivot for a lot of us. I know I'm looking into it because there's Colombian companies that have been doing this for years already. They're now coming to Miami. Like, where else would they go? Obviously, in Florida. And so with that opening up, I think we're going to see another pivot in that area. Whether that's going to be some of the gray market research areas, and then also the med spas and things like that are getting into it. So that's probably the next thing to explode, I think, in the market.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be very, very interesting. And I would love to see the price point on that too.
Well, now that they're coming over to the States, it's certainly pricey initially, but at least you'll get better quality than if you're going to Mexico. I mean, look at what happened to Ronnie Coleman getting some of that stuff. There's also some of the other folks in the bodybuilding space that went to Colombia to get it, and they wound up getting full body inflammation. Their body rejected the stem cells. Looks like we lost Nick. And their body rejected the stem cells, and they kind of blew up like a balloon, and they spent a month in the hospital trying to get that under control. So at least now with it coming to the US, we're going to have better quality control over these things and make it a little bit less dangerous for folks, but certainly pricey.
Yeah. I've seen the prices of some of the Follistatin and stuff coming out, and I'm like, I would never try.
Right now, that was not worth the price. I tried it.
Yeah.
No. I mean, it worked to an extent, but then you're also super sleepy all the time. And, I talked to some of the folks that developed it because one of them is a friend. And my theory on it was correct. Your body is in growth mode 24/7. So obviously that's going to utilize a lot of energy expenditure, recovering, growing, things like that. Yeah. And that's why you're sleepy all the time. And so it's almost like, when you were 16 years old going through a growth spurt, what'd you do? You slept all the time. You probably missed some tests, you missed your homework, things like that, because you're sleeping through it. And that's because your body was growing. Well, now imagine that years later that you're in that same spot, but you have a career, you have a family to deal with. You can't be sleeping all day anymore. You have too many responsibilities. So not only was it not great from actually put it on muscle size, and I think we've seen that with some of the folks that have been using it. None of them blew up to all of a sudden look like Ronnie Coleman, right?
Yeah. I was just about to bring up some people or some company, but
yeah. No one blew up to look like Ronnie Coleman, but we got a bunch of sleepy zombies walking around. So not a great combination, at this stage of our lives, I would say.
Yeah. Nick's internet went out or something. So, but yeah, I didn't see any muscular gains, even though they made claims about it as far as like this drastically changed my body. Because in my head, I'm thinking, there's so many variables. Maybe they didn't, they weren't listing, and I didn't really see any variables listed. And it really wasn't a study at all because nothing was formatively written down. Right. But they tried, I guess. But I mean, I do appreciate the brain of Brian Moscow.
Yeah.
And I just think that this one, it was a little bit too far stretch right now.
But, I like Brian. He's a wonderful guy, super nice, very knowledgeable as well. Always free with information and things like that, which is great. Like, you don't always see that in the industry. And so for him to, at least try on these areas, to be open with his information and things like that, that's great. I'm sure there's definitely benefits, especially for kidney health and things like that, with the Clotho that he was working on. Yeah. I think the dosing is interesting on that one because you see other companies copying it, and it's like 40x the amount that they have. But I'm more aligned with, honestly, BioLongevity's dosing protocol on that one than what you see some of these Chinese knockoff versions of it are
Yeah.
dosing yet. So yeah, I think people need to be careful on that one because they can certainly do some damage if you use too much of it, but it also has a ton of benefits if you get the dosing right.
Yeah, I'm definitely holding off on that. Like I don't find any benefit for me right now. But I do want like empirical evidence from everybody else. But I mean, I'm affiliated with Chemix because of Brian. Like I think that that's an awesome company. But you know, I jumped on with Paramount Peptides, but that was only because they were at the time they were the only company where I could buy a tablet of SLEW, 1 milligram SLEW. Everybody else had like really low doses, but then now I think Brian is now helping them out as well. But I don't know, man. They're it seems like they just got more sketchy, and then they messed up people's orders, and now my clients are like, I don't want to buy from you anymore, like buy from Paramount anymore. So now I'm like, okay, just go to APR.
Yes, I appreciate that. They're a little bit crazy on their side too. I'll say for some of the peptides, even with the discounts and all, they get a little bit expensive on that side of things.
Yeah, there's only like a couple of things I recommend people buying from there, and then I'm like, okay, cool, I'll get like $9 commission. But like I'm not so like some people are just like, this is the best brand only. And I'm like, like I'll just whatever I've tried from someplace, I'll send you there. I'm like, what's worth it's what's worth it. So
yeah, the funny thing is, it really comes down to manufacturing in our industry because everyone is getting the raw powders from like one of 3 to 5 vendors. And obviously there's a lot of companies that are just reselling the peptides. So they buy them already finished, from China, Hong Kong. I still classify Hong Kong as separate from China back when they had their independence or independent territory. But, or heaven forbid, you get it from India. India's manufacturing is really bad in this area. And then there are some US based ones too. I'll say we just opened up more on the US side. So that way we actually have 3 facilities now on the US that we're utilizing. And so it's really based on the manufacturing and how well they do that. There are some companies that have it down pretty well. And then there's others that are struggling immensely. And, our quality, I just equate it to the fact that I have such a long career in manufacturing. I know what good looks like, and I have good partners that run the facilities. And, I always love manufacturing. Like I love producing widgets and things like that. And when you go into one of these places where, one of our facilities is all refrigerated, the whole facility, the whole dang thing. Like most people will only do the warehouse, where you actually store the peptides. Maybe some will actually do the manufacturing line as well. We have the entire thing refrigerated. So everyone's wearing PPE, not only for sterility purposes, but to stay warm too. It costs a pretty penny to do, but that way, from the moment it comes in, it's staying at the proper temperatures, at the proper humidity levels and things like that. And no matter where it is in the lab getting tested for, purity, for content, things like that, or if it's out on the manufacturing floor or it's being stored, we have it, at the correct temperature and humidity levels. And it's just fun. It looks like you're walking into, some sort of sci-fi movie with everyone walking around in the white suits and, over their sneakers and everything like that too.
That's funny. That brings up another question. Someone else has a question here too. First about that, I find that the integrity of the peptides when they're in the vials and such, I don't think they're as like weak as people think. Like people are like, oh, like once it shakes, like it degrades and all this stuff. Like I believe they're much stronger because I've shaken them. I've had them in extreme heat being here in Texas. And also same thing like with insulin, people are like, oh, you got to put them in the refrigerator. I'm like, I have type 1 diabetics and they don't keep their stuff in the refrigerator. And they've also used some that is like 5 years expired and it still works.
Right.
So.
I agree with you 100%. These things, especially when they're still in the lyophilized form, they're incredibly stable. the vast majority of the peptide companies, whether they want to admit it or not, they may say made in the USA. Sure, it was labeled in the USA is usually what they mean. Great little marketing ploy there. But, you know, let's say 90% of them are getting it shipped from overseas. And no one is all saying like, oh, all the peptides in the world are fake, right? So they're pretty stable in that form. Yes, you can throw it in the freezer. It's going to be good for 5 years at that point. Yeah. Once you reconstitute, obviously it depends on what it is and how stable it will be. There's certain ones that are incredibly stable. There's other ones that if you don't store it just right, you're going to see that it's going to gel and things like that because it is more sensitive on that side of things. But yeah, and as far as we're talking about stability of the peptides, my favorite discussion as of late is CLO and GLOW. The copper is destroying the BPC and the TB500 in there. BPC-157 survives stomach acid. You're telling me copper is going to kill it? I don't think so. Not a chance. Like, not to mention the copper is chelated so that it stays folded to itself in there. So yes, maybe if you expose it to direct sunlight and heat for long periods of time, yeah, okay, that copper is going to come unbound, and yes, it may start messing up the TB, possibly the KPV in there. But again, these things are designed to survive your stomach acid. So I always love that one. I think that was my most commented on post was about GLOW. And all because a certain chiropractor said that copper attacks BPC-157 because, all of the biochemistry chiropractors take, zero, that, people believe it because he has 1 million followers. It has to be the gospel.
That's the stuff he reads off of his computer screen. It blows my mind. And I didn't even know this guy until people kept sending me the stuff, like video clips. And I'm like, and I just told him, like, please stop sending me these things. I'm like, look him up. Look what his past is. And I'm like, it's just, yeah, man. It's like, how gullible can you be?
When he said he could cure PTSD.
Yeah, that word.
Need to work on people with PTSD. It's not a peptide solution. It's not even a medication solution. It's going to be multiple aspects that you have to address. And having friends that have experienced horrific things in battle, for someone like that to say they have the cure for PTSD, I would slap the crud out of this guy if I ever saw him.
Yeah, man. Yeah, freaking. Yes, I would like to get rid of mine. And
that's what people went through, really. And you're giving false hope to people that have something horrific that they're trying to get through. Yeah, they don't need a chiropractor to fix their hips that are out of alignment. They need psychologists and proper medication.
Yeah, man. Like, again, like, I don't like to throw shade at people, but whenever people are just asking for it, I'm like, okay, like, this has got to stop because it's ridiculous. And yeah, like you said, man, it does hurt people in the long run with that misinformation. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't like throwing shade at anyone either. I'd rather be friends with everyone. Like, I was the first one to reach out to the TRT clinics. Like, hey, we're not in a battle here. We can all coexist. And then I actually did a podcast recently with a gentleman that owns a clinic, and we're talking that we agree on that side of things. There's plenty of space in the industry, I think, for everyone. Different opinions help us come up with new ideas and new research areas, things like that. So I always like a good debate or a good discussion because ultimately it makes us all better. I think we still need to learn that art, though. I think the art of a discussion has been lost. People, take it personally if they don't agree with each other right now. But, especially in the medical field where we get new information all the time. Nothing is set in stone. If someone says this is the absolute only way to do something, I'd be very wary of them. Because there's new research constantly coming out and you have to stay on top of it, and you have to be able to and be willing to change your opinion on things as new things come out.
Yeah, I think a lot of that people don't know how to phrase sentences correctly and word things and communicate. I think communication is like a huge problem that we have, and it's a lost art. But whenever I don't hear the words "this currently supports this evidence" or something like, and you're saying like making these claims, I'm like, okay, dude, just don't like let's just stop this conversation.
Let's cite some sources here, please.
Yeah. All right. We're about to sign off a little bit. We've been on it for a while, which we have two more questions, and these are super quick. Which peptides should not be taken together, and which ones support the other? Don't go through all of them, but like, you know,
I'm assuming they mean taken
I think like
together in general, not necessarily in the same syringe, let's say.
Yeah, or you can throw that one in there. I think that's a hot topic too, mixing peptides together in the same syringe with like growth hormone or with an anabolic oil base or something.
Oh, I know exactly what you're saying. Please, no one combine oil and water into the same syringe unless you want to get an abscess. Like, unless you really like taking antibiotics and want to risk a giant divot in your muscle, don't do that. You know, anything that's growth hormone derivative, don't mix that with anything. So that would be HGH, that would be your AODs, that would be frag HGH, anything like that. Those are too fragile to mix with anything. And I guarantee you, as soon as you mix it, it's going to look like a milky white kind of solution. As soon as you see that milky white, that means it degraded. And so you lost it at that point. So I don't recommend necessarily mixing too many things within there. There's, obviously there are certain ones like the already made blends, also PT141 with melanotan 2. I have that mixed. It works really well together. So you put that one together. It works great for getting tan and also the libido boosts and things like that together. So there's certain ones that you can put together. There's what was hot at one point in time, which thankfully, Brian, that you had mentioned, is helping to stomp this out, is combining BAM and SLEW together. That's like, putting duct tape on your car fuel tank to stop the leakage, and then you take BAM, you punch another hole in it. So the SLEW is putting the duct tape around your gas tank, and BAM's coming in and throwing a wrench into it to create a hole, and it's leaking. And that's essentially how the two work. BAM causes leakage within the mitochondria, whereas SLEW amps it up. And so those two together it's one or the other, not both at the same time. So I wouldn't combine those two. I'd also just be careful of combining too many mitochondrial boosters in general, because you're going to start hitting too much oxidative damage and you're going to start getting burnout. Once you start feeling that fatigue, or if you're taking SLEW and you start sweating a lot more than you used to, that's your body trying to expel it, not that it's working better. And so combining too many of those mitochondrial boosters, like, the MOTS, the SLEWs, the methylene blues, so on and so forth on those side of things, choose one, choose two maybe, but make sure your oxidative support game is at their best. And then take SS31 before all of that to make sure, that repairs the car engine. Then the MOTS and those other ones supercharge the engine. You don't want to put a supercharger on a broke engine because you're going to blow it and you're going to get that fatigue. As far as things to combine, look, I'm going to tell everyone, stay up on your glutathione. That's a great antioxidant to help out with all kinds of things, whether that's neural inflammation, liver support, skin even. It's going to support all those areas. And I can tell you, based on a lot of blood work that I have seen, that's been critical, especially for the competitive athletes, to keeping their liver markers in range, even at the end of a prep. It'll also keep your inflammation down so that you're bringing a better package to the stage too. You're not going to be as puffy. You're going to be drier. looking. So that's a good one, I think, to combine with any of the other stack.
And I think everyone's tans look better. It seems like it adheres better. The glutathione, I feel like it does something to your pH too. But
yes,
that's
the funny thing is, you mentioned the pH. That's also going to then impact how either 5-amino 1-MQ or L-carnitine are going to feel if you're doing the injectable routes. There's certain people that do well with injectable 5-amino 1-MQ. Others say it hurts like a baseball bat in their leg. And then there's the same folks that generally what I found, if you do well with 5-amino 1-MQ, you're not so much on the L-carnitine and then the inverse. And the only thing I've been able to narrow that down to is individuals' pHs of their system. Everyone has unique pH, but there seem to be certain ranges that allow one to feel better than the other. It's something interesting that I've been working on. And honestly, I've been saving up some money to fund some research in the future.
Yeah.
And that's one of the areas I want to do. That and an actual training study to see if there's more to the pump than we ever thought there was.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Like muscle biopsies with the pump too, or yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Dang. Now you got me. I have another question that someone brought up. The 5-amino 1-MQ. They asked, do you recommend sub-Q or intramuscular?
I personally do intramuscular on that one. I always have on that one. One, because the dosage is generally a milliliter, and I'm not doing a milliliter sub-Q of anything anywhere because I don't want a giant lump or welt on me. And so I've always found that one, as long as we're talking about the amino version of it, if you will. That's the version that comes pre-mixed.
Yep.
If you're doing, the powdered lipolysed version of it, then you could probably get away with sub-Q on that one. I still do IM on it personally, but the dosage is a lot lower, obviously, on that one, because it's going to be a little bit more potent. It's going to have better bioavailability. Then, it's kind of ranking in order of how much you need to take to get an effective dose. The lipolysed version being the lowest, then the amino version is what I refer to it as, the pre-mixed ones that generally come in 20 or 30 ml bottles. And then finally, the oral one, you're going to need the most out of that to get the effective dose.
Yeah. I was telling this guy because I use yours, and I've used in other companies and how to reconstitute it. But my go-to route is if it's an amino acid, I'm injecting it into my muscle.
Yep.
That's just the route that I go. And I've done yours, and I've also done Chase Irons, his carnitine, but I don't have a reaction to any of those, like an adverse reaction or side effect or anything. They go in smooth, and but yeah, I've always done them intramuscular. I've heard people do them sub-Q and they've had abscess or other issues, and I'm like, I don't know the quality, but I'm like, well, that's what you kind of get for putting an amino acid in your fat. Because again, I think it's, the pH of muscle versus fat it's also different.
Yep.
But
yeah, there was a study that showed L-carnitine did better sub-Q than it did intramuscular.
It did. I didn't feel anything sub-Q for carnitine, but intramuscular, my thermogenesis was up. Pump was up, my performance was up, and I was doing, his was 600 milligrams, I think, back in the day dosed. I think I was doing 2 bilateral injections of 600 milligram in the shoulders. But your amino, I do 3 injections throughout the day.
Okay.
So I split it up. So.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, we have the L-carnitine that's 1,000. That's that's the most I've been able to find before it starts getting too thick. The cool thing about L-carnitine powder, if you just leave it out to the open air, it actually turns to a gel. You don't even have to touch it. Just leave it alone for an hour. You come back, it's a gel sitting in the Petri dish. And so that's why it gets so thick in there, and you don't want to inject it once it starts getting too thick.
Yeah. All right, my man. That is it for this. I want to have you back on and just ask more bro questions. Yeah.
Sure. I love it. Hey, thanks for having me on. It's been a blast. Sorry, I had some issues with the camera there.
No, you're good.
Switching laptops. Now that I've fully switched careers over to just the peptide world at this point. So had to get a new laptop since my last one went back to my corporate job.
That's what's up. Yeah. All right. And again, you guys follow him on Instagram. I showed you in the beginning. What was your Instagram again? Fit exec or
At _fit_executive.
Yeah. So go get some peptides and research on your own. But we'll stop recording, guys.